Welcome to our series on how state, county, and municipal leaders can better detect and respond to cyber threats by taking new approaches to security operations. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and we're here today to talk about the foundations of cybersecurity compliance. And joining us are Ryan Murray, Deputy Director for the Arizona Department of Homeland Security and the Deputy CISO for the state of Arizona, and Lewis Evans, the Senior Product Manager for Arctic Wolf. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having us.
Well, let's start with you, Ryan. Cybersecurity compliance is a necessary responsibility for every enterprise and business, but organizations frequently wrestle with balancing compliance and risk, as well as the ease of use of our users. And it can also be confined by budgets and skill sets and so forth. Talk to us a little bit about who, first of all, is responsible for managing and enforcing regulatory compliance at the same time as cybersecurity.
Yeah, for sure. And so here at the state of Arizona, we're certainly not immune to the effects of budget shortfalls and recruiting and retention issues. So we've definitely run into this. And realistically, like most things, this is a team sport, right? We have multiple teams that are responsible for identifying their regulatory compliance needs, working with those regulatory bodies, and ensuring that they're meeting those requirements. So fortunately, our department here in Arizona, the Department of Homeland Security and our State Information Security and Privacy Office are the ones that set cybersecurity policies and monitor compliance at the state level, at the statewide level. So we are the ones that are doing that sort of overall overarching umbrella monitoring and compliance enforcement. However, obviously, our various agencies still have federal regulatory bodies or other regulatory bodies that they have to adhere to those requirements. And they're ultimately responsible for ensuring that they're meeting those regulatory needs. Fortunately, we're here to help them in that we sort of have that higher level picture, that statewide perspective, so we can provide that guidance on how to meet those regulatory requirements in a timely way.
Well, I'm going to direct this next question to you, Lewis. Industry-specific regulations, state and local requirements, and then there's national and international regulations, all tend to complicate compliance and risk assessments. Talk to us a little bit about some of the best practices you'd recommend for organizations to take the best of and understand the sort of the critical and sometimes conflicting requirements to put them into proper practice.
Yeah, well, the first set of best practices that I would speak to would be the ones that Ryan already outlined that the state of Arizona is accomplishing. It's important, first of all, to break down that wall that we see between operational and sometimes in private sector, you see even finance is kind of owning compliance more generally, but obviously IT is going to have this key role in executing against those compliance requirements. And and again, Ryan, the sort of the multi-layer organization that you're describing there, where different agencies are going to have responsibilities to different compliance frameworks that they're going to be appropriately situated to meet, but that also might impose under considered obligations on their sister agencies or on their parent organizations. Like that's extremely important. And I think that a key thing that organizations often miss is a lot of these key regulatory frameworks. The responsibility adheres to the kind of activity that the organization is doing rather than the vertical or category that it self-identifies with. So, healthcare being the classic example, a lot of organizations out there saying to themselves, well, I'm not a doctor's office, I don't have to be HIPAA compliant. No, that as with many other regulatory frameworks, the rule is if EPHI is traveling through your systems, that's an obligation. So the first best practice I would say is breaking down those organizational barriers, then taking that wide perspective of saying, okay, what kind of information do we handle? What kind of responsibilities do we incur? When are we handling stuff directly? When are we handling stuff for organizations that we partner with? Sort of an ear to the wind. What's coming down the pipe. We're seeing some interesting developments in the federal space around how organizations that are classified as critical infrastructure, which is kind of a new category, right? A lot of these regulations they roll out, and even the category that they apply to wasn't previously defined. Or CMMC sort of, again, speaking to the entire defense industrial base, which probably is not directly going to be states and municipalities, but you'll see these sort of knock-on effects. So okay, so first breaking down those role-based silos within an organization, then achieving developing a wide perspective on the kinds of compliance responsibilities that might adhere to an organization, and then the next necessary step is being able to really get down in the weeds and understand how these different compliance regimes, typically they end up imposing a lot of the same obligations, but they are never going to impose exactly the same ones. So there's, once you have this sense of like, okay, we're going to need to document A, B, C, and D to regulator number 1, and we're going to have to document A, B, C, and E to regulator number 2, developing a practice within the organization of understanding that ultimately that like fairly extensive pile of specific compliance obligations, and also the people to whom they're going to have to be reported, right? And that's where we see a lot of organizations we work with stumble. They're actually doing a lot of the good stuff. A lot of the things end up in regulations because they're a best practice, and organizations are doing them, or they know they should be doing them, but they're maybe not equipped to demonstrate to the satisfaction of a regulator or an auditor or a third-party organization that they work with that they are doing them, right? Or and demonstrates that satisfaction. Often there are really specific criteria on that, and so then and there's a range of commercial products, and you can never beat an old-fashioned spreadsheet of understanding, what are the couple hundred different controls or practices that we have to achieve, and who are the different people that we're going to be responsible to document that for, whether that's leadership or as Ryan was mentioning, for organizations within the broader state of Arizona, they're going to need to be able to document this up to DHS and to the statewide government. So that's that would be the sort of core best practice principles. Once you get into specific regulatory frameworks, then you're going to have a lot of particular flavors that adhere to that specific framework and those requirements.
Well, Ryan, can you talk a little bit about how more modern tools and approaches are leading to better security success stories at your organization?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously we're a cloud-first state. So everything we try to do here is move as much as we possibly can out of state-run data centers or state-run closets, more realistically, into cloud, tier 3 data centers that are supporting next generation infrastructure and next generation applications. So one of the things that we've done to see that success happen is obviously we've got a lot of regulatory requirements as we start moving these sensitive and protected data types into cloud environments. And how we've done that is try to deconflict all those various regulated bodies, all those various control frameworks that are out there, whether it's NIST or ISO or IEEE or whatever it happens to be, right? Is we've sort of modeled our framework here in Arizona after what the feds have done at the FedRAMP level. So looking at the FedRAMP program, taking sort of that continuous monitoring, looking at the NIST control frameworks, because that's typically what most of these organizations are going to have to meet. And that's what we've modeled our statewide policies here after. And then how do we review those in a way that makes sense that we're putting this sensitive state data into cloud environments? How are we ensuring that it's being protected to the appropriate level? And then ensuring that those vendors are meeting those requirements in a continuous way. And the evolution of that has been into what's now called StateRAMP, which is a program that the state of Arizona is participating heavily in, is essentially trying to take what we're all doing at each 50 states and model that at the national level, right? So we know we've got vendors that work across the country. We've got companies, cloud service providers that are providing services to every state in the nation. Why are they having to reproduce all of their regulatory and controls assessments across all 50 states? So someone had the bright idea that we shouldn't have to do that 50 times for every single time we want to do business in one of these states. Let's do it once and then repeat it across with that trusted model that we know it's been done correctly. So we've been providing very heavy input into the state ramp program, assisting them with essentially taking that model that we've used here at Arizona. Texas is doing something very similar. And there's a few other states that had a very similar risk assessment program that they're modeling state ramp after. And how can we help to mature that program? So essentially, if Arizona is already assessing that organization, they've already passed all those control requirements. State ramp has a program manager that's doing continuous monitoring to ensure that if there is any gaps, that they're addressed in a timely way, that they don't have to do that again in Nevada or Colorado or Utah or West Virginia or wherever it happens to be, that they can do that once and then have it repeatable for every other state across the nation.
Well, it's always refreshing when common sense prevails on something like state ramp. Louis, just briefly, where else are you seeing states or municipalities show some, demonstrable cybersecurity successes?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ryan's talking about cloud becoming the foundation for IT across states. That's definitely true, and I think that here at Arctic Wolf, we're also seeing cloud serve as the system of record for security and compliance, which is an interesting sort of further evolution, and historically we had seen, maybe not even at a practical level, but just certainly in terms of the overall sentiments, right? There was this sense of cloud and security in opposition, and now we're seeing that they really represent an opportunity to work more closely together. One of the things we're helping the municipalities we work with do is use the cloud as a scalable resource for collecting security relevant and also compliance relevant data. And then you see this sort of force multiplier where we're able to make security use of that data in an active sense, and also retain it on an ongoing basis for these compliance use cases. And that's really that's in terms of the scalability of the data store and the availability of the data store and the access that you get in an audit or in an internal report or any sort of requirement to document compliance controls, you're able to develop a process that's a lot more streamlined than the cabinets that Ryan mentioned and that I'm sure everyone here is familiar with. So that's the exciting area that I would speak to.
Well, terrific. And then lastly, gentlemen, I think CISOs in particular, but CIOs more broadly, have always wrestled with just a plethora of tools and so forth that they've had to manage to keep up with security. So in light of that and some of the modern advances we've seen, what should organizations look for now today in an external vendor or partner to really continue to advance their ability to detect and respond to risks and security? Ryan, maybe I'll ask you to take that one first.
Yeah, so the short version is find someone that understands your business, right? State agencies and municipal governments are going to be a bit unique in how they conduct business just compared to private sector organizations. So finding a partner that's willing to come in and understand how you operate and how they fit into that picture is going to be critical. Obviously, there's varied regulatory requirements across multiple agencies, multiple departments, even sections within various departments are going to have different regulated data types. So being able to know how your product or how your support service model fits into those regulated requirements is critical. We've had several cloud service providers that have come in and said, oh yeah, absolutely, we can meet CISO requirements. But then once we actually start going down the list of the 250 plus controls they have to meet, they're like, oh yeah, we never really thought about those. So having someone that knows what those regulations are and how their product or service fits into them is going to be critical to success. And then, of course, find someone that's willing to actually partner with you, right? Not just sell you a product, because we've had a lot of those that are like, hey, we'll come in, we'll sell you this amazing tool that does awesome magic. And then, day one, we're left scrambling, trying to figure out how to make it work within our environment. The most success we've had is with those partners that have essentially started the groundwork before we've made the sale, and then afterwards are there to help stick around and support us, regardless of whatever that pricing model looks like.
And Louis, your last thoughts on
I would absolutely absolutely echo everything Ryan was saying there. And I would just take maybe two extensions from those core concepts. You're looking for a security partner that understands how your organization is operating and is also willing to meet the tech stack where it is. And one of the things that we see a lot of in the security space is a lot of sort of legacy or monolithic vendors who really, they can do a bunch of cool stuff as long as you're willing to throw out 95% of what you have and replace it with their entire sort of back parts list. Or you see new vendors who have a really cool tool that is very exciting if you've been adopting the cloud development best practices that have been in place since Q3 of 2021. So what do you mean you're not up to speed on that, right? And one of the ways that an organization I think can demonstrate that partnership credibility is by designing its own technical architecture to meet organizations' architectures where they are. And then the other question that I would ask again, is in sort of an extension of the virtues that Ryan spoke to is the security vendor in it for the long haul for that partnership? Are they willing to develop their own security capabilities and offerings? Do they have a track record of doing that? Are they going to help your organization meet its strategic objectives this year? And are they going to next year when you have a new set of strategic objectives, some of which you might be able to foresee and some of which are going to be responding to circumstances that were foreseeable but not foreseen, let's say, is maybe the story of the past couple of years of exciting new cybersecurity objectives. Are you working with a team that can serve as Ryan said, as an effective partner on those questions? And so those would be the sort of criteria that I was looking for, and it can involve a little bit of pushback against organizations that want to come in and sort of promise that they have a very exciting upfront tool, or kind of want to whitewash their answers to what could you do on this. But it does create the opportunity to build an effective security partnership that ultimately is going to streamline compliance work, leave the state or the municipality more secure, and facing fewer headaches down the road. So it really is an important decision. I think I appreciate you raising the criteria for that last question.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ryan Murray from the state of Arizona and Lewis Evans from Arctic Wolf, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing some of your insights about kind of better ways to lay more modern foundations for cybersecurity compliance. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Dwight. Appreciate it.